Okay, I'm live now. Okay, what I want to develop is what's my mathematical intuition say about sex brain differences? Um it's the few Y chromosome genes that men have that don't overlap with women are a very tiny percentage of our genes, overall genes. And our brain is extremely big and complicated. So that means the vast majority of our brain is encoded by DNA we all share. And if there's a tiny bit that is encoded, and you don't know, yeah, if there's a tiny bit of DNA that men have that encodes a different brain from women, I mean, it's a tiny amount, and still women have the same number of corresponding genes. They're just X versions of it instead of Y versions of it. So, actually, since the Y chromosome is smaller, women actually have two X chromosomes. There's potential for, well, there might not be potential for more complexity, but I mean, women actually do have more genes than men have because Y chromosome's smaller. Um, but whatever the number, anyway. So, if men's brains are different from women, it is a matter of the same genes that encode the brain. It just the testosterone results in some of the genes encoding the testosterone results in parts of it getting bigger and others getting smaller. Whereas with animals, the reason why animals have smaller brains than we have is because, and simpler brains presumably, is because the amount of genes that encode the brain is fewer. So the whole brain's simpler. So with men, yeah, it's like so with men's brains versus women's brains, if women's brains are smaller, but we have the same number of genes, we all have the same number of genes in our chromosomes, then um, then that means the genes, it's the same number of genes encoding our brain. So, and it's the number of genes encoding our brain that determine how complex it is. Um, so it's like compare it to a man who has who is born with a certain number of muscle fibers, and then testosterone will make those fibers get a little bit bigger, but it doesn't create more muscle fibers. So yeah, so why they would be defensive like that is funny. But however, there should be different. So yeah, there would not be, in terms of the underlying genes encoding male versus female brains. There's hardly any difference, except that the hormones produce difference. So then the hormones act on it and produce difference. Um, but it could be pretty powerful what the difference is. In particular, you have a potential brain of the same complexity. The fact that women's brains are smaller sometimes can result in potential advantages, cognitive advantages in certain ways. Just because, like, you know how a tall man is slow. Tall men are slower than short men, for instance. So it's and actually human beings have our brains are like at the upper limit of how big you can get before they start to like the stereotype of the man who is a little bit klutzy and absent-minded, and it's women who have to take care of all the practical stuff because the man is like all whatever. That has to do with men's brains are so big that they specialize in whatever they specialize as. So they might become very genius at a certain thing. And that comes at the expense of the brain is so big that you can't have all of it working at once. So it comes at the expense of overall like day-to-day organization and stuff. So yeah, but anyway, that was just one thing I wanted to clarify, and that's it.